Thank you. We're going to call the meeting to order. It's 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 18th of August. Mr. Clerk, could you call the roll?
Councilor Duran.
Here.
Councilor McDonough.
Here.
Councilor Scott.
Here.
3 present.
Great, thank you very much. So we have 2 items on the agenda today that were directed here from the August 11th City Council meeting. The first was motion 6-2 to ask the Rules Subcommittee to review City Council rules and subcommittee structure to offer recommendations, if any, for enhancements for the full City Council to debate. And then 6.7 was a motion for the City Council to look into a pilot program, redesigning subcommittees and scheduling to go along with a biweekly schedule for the balance of the 2026 calendar year. We have with us in the chamber someone whose name I don't know, so maybe you'll introduce yourself. Thank you.
That's all right, Counselor. Garrett Beaulieu, First Assistant City Solicitor.
Great. Thank you, Garrett. Sorry for that.
That's okay, Counselor.
And if we get folks in the audience, we will see if they want to weigh in on anything. I would probably start with the City Council rules that we have and go through them with to see if there are questions or comments, suggestions as we go along. I know that there was a link to the rules, but I think an older version sent out with the agenda. If I could ask the clerk if we can update the rules, or I'm not sure actually who does it, if it's MIS or someone else, to make sure that the current rules are on the city website.
I believe they might have already done that. There was the last set of rules was 2014 that they were updated. It was just an addition of the rule to essential members of the body. But I think they're integrated into the website now. If not, I'll get them up there.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, I think the 2014 rules still assume 9 counselors, so I think there were a number of changes there, but that's great. And just to remind us all, jumping ahead, just FYI, on Section 33 of the rules says no amendment to the rules can be made except at a regular meeting of the City Council with a 2/3 vote, as long as each counselor has to have received a written copy of any changes at least 1 week before, and the Rules Subcommittee has to report on any proposed changes. So if we do suggest changes, we will comply with that provision. So let's start with the rules in order. So Rule 1 talks about the organization of the council and the election of the mayor and vice chair. I guess one question is, do we have any updates on the status? We had a separate rules discussion a couple of months ago about the mayoral process, and there were a number of we didn't reach a conclusion, maybe is the way to put it, but a number of suggestions, discussions, and I think where we left it was to have meetings at the neighborhoods to get input from folks. So I'm not sure if there is any updated status. Maybe to you, Garrett.
To my knowledge, no, there hasn't been any update on that. However, if it's the will of the council to continue moving forward with this, then the law department is here to provide any resources to the council.
Okay, so we can bring that before the council, but I think, it would probably be good to reach some conclusion at some point about that, so we can lay it to bed one way or the other. I did notice some slight typos about, for instance, where the comma should be, and I can provide those, I think, offline, so we're not taking time. They're minor, typographical things. Did anybody have any other comments or anything on Section 1? No, okay. So Section 2 talks about if there's a vacancy in the mayor or vice chair. So just a question I had is, it said no vacancy in the office of mayor or vice chair. So there is a process if there is a vacancy in the office of mayor or vice chair. which currently is that the council would elect someone else to fill that position for the unexpired term, but it would not be filled in that way if there is any vacancy in the city council itself. So I'm just curious what we would do. I mean, hopefully that's an unlikely circumstance, but curious if there is any precedent we should be aware of to think about that. It doesn't look like it's addressed in Mass General laws. It is set up that way, but there's no process.
Yes, Counselor, I would agree with that, and I do agree with you that it is probably a very unlikely event that this situation would arise. However, what we could do is potentially look if this situation has arisen in other communities. Again, that might be it might be a little unlikely, but if that is, again, if that's something that the council would want to maybe add some clarity to, that's certainly something that we could discuss and maybe potential ways to add clarity to that or to amend the rule so we could have an actual procedure that if that event were to arise, that we could have it set out in the rules.
Okay, that might be helpful just if somebody has run into it, but again, just, yeah.
No, I would just question why we wouldn't remove that line at all, why we need to.
I think it is actually in the statute that is referenced there. So that's the,
Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
So, but I just, yeah, no, go for it.
I think just trying to remember in
Yeah, I'm
reading
gonna
the
look
planning
at it.
statute, part of the problem, I guess it might be too strong a word, but part of the problem is that to fill a vacancy on the city council, the way that Plan E lays it out would be a council appointment. And then the council would be whole again. And then you would elect from a whole council the mayor. And so it's actually not a huge problem if we were following Plan E as written, but where we have a special election to fill a vacancy in a councillor, we have, I think, accidentally created for ourselves a new problem where we would have to wait for that special election to take place before we could get a chairperson back.
Yeah,
Is that,
or in the
I
first
think,
year,
I think
right,
yeah. Otherwise, I don't know that it creates as big of a problem. During the period of time where we would just be appointing the person to fill the council seat, I don't know that it creates a real
Delay.
hurdle where we would appoint the councillor and then immediately fill the mayor's seat. So I think it's that first year where the special election would take place.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. So I think maybe we can just figure out if there's any, interplay that we need to think through in light of that so that we're not confused. And maybe it is, and maybe the result is that the clerk who is in charge, chair, basically until the mayor is elected under Rule 1, maybe that's what happens, but I think we just have to think about it. Again, hopefully a small likelihood, but not impossible. Thank you. Okay, I'll move on to Rule 3 unless anybody has anything else. So we have the setup here, which is what's set forth in the rules, which is that the counselors sit in a semicircle facing the rostrum. I know some people have suggested other seating arrangement, not counselors, but sort of other folks, so that the council is not sort of with their back to the audience, but I'm not sure how we could practically do other things, so I'm just curious what thoughts there are among the 5 of us who are here in the room at the moment. Thank you. Go ahead, Councilor McDonough.
I guess we are limited by space, to state the obvious. I would be curious. I don't, from eyeballing it, it doesn't look like it would fit. I would be curious if with a measuring tape it would fit, to go maybe kind of even a more open semicircle, and or if not 2 parallel lines on the outset, and then you'd probably, not that the council rules say where the manager sits, but if you did that, you would then probably have to move the manager there, and then you'd have to probably take down some. It'd be a process. So I think it might be more involved than necessarily it merits, but I do not like having my back to the audience, but that's okay. That's the way the council chamber has always been. So if it would fit, I would support moving it, but I'm not comfortable eyeballing that.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's, yeah, it would be interesting to think about actually lining them up this way and that way. But then everything, like
there's-
those
I didn't even
tables have
think
to
of it,
move. So I don't know that that's worth it, but I think if maybe if constituents have ideas on ways that this could be done, I mean, that would be worth hearing. So putting it out there into the world and into LTC, the LTC audience. So Rule 4 talks about nobody can be admitted within the rail or in the members' lobby, which I don't know if the members' lobby is the space off to the side. Do we know?
Yeah.
It is?
I think so.
I'm assuming so, but I don't know what it is.
It says members only on the door.
It does?
It does.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that. I didn't look at that.
Yesterday.
Okay. So I guess I'll keep moving on. So we have the regular meetings, Rule 5, which talks about meetings falling, held Tuesdays, 6:30, except on a holiday or during June, July, August, September, when they're held on the second and fourth Tuesdays. And this year, for instance, we're meeting on September 8th and the 22nd. I know some people have asked me why the summer extends into September for the city council, and I don't know if anybody either knows the history of that or has opinions, pros and cons of doing that. I know we will separately discuss the motion by Councilor Rourke on maybe having the meetings when the council doesn't meet to be subcommittee meetings, which is what we're doing tonight. But I don't know if anybody has an opinion.
I'm fine with the current system, the way it's set up, so.
The only, this is unrelated to the summer schedule, but on the time of the meeting, I had looked at Cambridge and Worcester's council rules because there are only other two plannees, and so I figured that was a good comparison. One rule around the meeting schedule that Worcester had that I thought might be worth considering was that they have a set start time, but they also have a small amount of discretion built in for a combination of the mayor and the clerk's office to say, this is a very long agenda. We could probably use 30 more minutes. And so then in that conversation, when they post the agenda, instead of a 6:30 start, it would be a 6 o'clock start with a backstop so that it never moves earlier, right? So that we're not no one has to call out of work to get to a council meeting, I hope. But just in those rare cases when the two examples they give were a particularly lengthy agenda or if there's an executive session that needs to be scheduled. And I know the city solicitor had said this about maybe doing executive session at the front of a meeting. And what it looks like Worcester does is they move the meeting start time up by 30 to 45 minutes, open, go to executive session, and then come back. And in that way, they get it done while everyone's still fresh. So not necessarily going for a full proposal on that tonight. I thought it was an interesting idea and thought I'd throw it out there.
Sorry,
So
go ahead, Mr. Yeah.
I think that, if we could certainly draft an amendment to the rule in terms of the time, I was looking at the words that says or as otherwise designated, and I think that, in my interpretation, that could give the council the flexibility that in the case that you mentioned, Councilor McDonough, if it looks like it's going to be a particularly lengthy meeting, I think that, pursuant to the requirements of the open meeting law and posting requirements and everything like that, I do think that or as otherwise designated could give the council the flexibility as the rule is already written to do that. But again, if in terms of specificity, if we could certainly draft some more specific language, giving the council flexibility to change the meeting time.
And if the meeting time were changed, do we think that there is a concern with that among, by counselors? Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think it's always been 5:30 to 6:30 is the time allocated for subcommittees. So that's the consideration. I mean, I don't think anyone has a problem with starting a meeting earlier now and then if there's no subcommittee. But as stated, I think the language already allows for that. And I think maybe it's something that we should look at in the future when we're scheduling a long agenda, if it works for everybody. I don't know if the clerk has any thoughts on that. As long as there's no subcommittees, is there any reason in city business happening that 6 PM is an issue with meetings, or?
Not on Tuesdays. This
Oh, actually, do you mind using your microphone? Just so.
Not on Tuesdays, Counselor. This room is dedicated on Tuesdays, so if we were willing to start at 6 without anything in front of it, that wouldn't be an issue, scheduling purposes.
Okay, thank you. But I don't see a need to change the language right now, so, thanks.
Yeah, I think it's more that I don't know that anybody actually thinks about it, about the possibility, and yeah, that might be worth discussing, yeah.
Yeah, I think, one, it was that nobody thinks about the possibility. Two, it would be to say, rather than, fully at the council's discretion for a regular meeting where it's like not an emergency, that we would say, but not earlier than 5 or not earlier than 5:30, or that you would put some specificity in there, and then that hopefully, by having it in writing, people realize that it's an option, and we're not relying on, oh yeah, we could just say, I have 15 votes from the manager or whatever tonight, and we need this, or there's an executive session that looks like it's going to take a good amount of time, and we shouldn't have that at 10:30 at night. So, I don't know.
Yes.
And just one more comment about it. I think it's a good idea, like, thinking about it, but especially possibly during the summer meetings when we, our subcommittees are held on usually the opposite weeks. We have other weeks available to do it on Tuesdays or whatever, night we want to. And those meetings seem to run pretty long. So it might be a good idea for us to look at the 6 PM start over the summer. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good point, thank you. And then we've got a 10 PM end time, except if, voted by a majority of the city council. Does that seem reasonable? And it seems sometimes to come up unexpectedly at the, 10:30 seems early to me, but I know I tend to be a late person, so I'm not. Yeah.
Just a question on it, though. Is it by it says it's by majority vote of the council. I thought in the past it had been if one person had voted no on it, that they didn't continue the time. Did that change at some point? Oops, microphone, please.
Yeah, thank you.
It may have changed. There was another section that they were applying it to for that 2 votes, but I can't recall if that language is in now, but that language is pretty clear that if you want to waive Rule 5, you need a majority.
Okay, thank you.
So at this point, it doesn't sound like we are proposing any sort of automatically a later time. We're going to stick with the 10 PM. And
No, it's a majority vote, so I think
Yep.
that's.
Cool. And then this might be a question more for the solicitor. A meeting can be postponed due to weather or extraordinary circumstance if the clerk, after polling the membership by phone or electronically, does that include text, do you think, for those counselors for whom that's a preferred method?
I think by electronically, then yes, I think given, I don't know the last time this rule was drafted, if it was before the invention of cell phones, but I think now, given, I think we could certainly apply electronically to text as well, as a cell phone is, I would consider it an electronic device.
Cool. Okay, thank you. So we have anything else on 5? Otherwise, 5A, we have subcommittees. So subcommittees, and I'm not sure if there's a difference between a committee and a subcommittee of the city council. So I'm assuming they're all the same. So weekdays after 4 PM in the council chamber. And again, we can look at, we'll talk about Councilor Rourke's suggestions on the subcommittee rules. Is the timing, the timing realistically seems to be 5:30 or 6 as the start time, either 5:30 on day of a city council meeting or otherwise. So just curious if there's any thoughts. Counselor Scott, sorry.
But there have been I know they had senior center meetings,
Oh, that's true.
subcommittee.
Yeah, there were a
during
couple
the day.
senior center meetings during the afternoon.
How did that happen with the rules, how they are right now? Is that, would that be something that it should be added in, like unless there's a majority vote of the council? Would that make sense?
Yeah, maybe
to
if they're
change the time?
looking to go out and do the middle of the day subcommittee meetings.
Yeah, I think that should be a vote of the council. I mean, everyone may not like that if, like if you're at work every day and you're not able to attend those meetings, you may be against it, but if the majority wants that, then I would say that's okay.
Counselor McDonough, you were going to.
I was going to say, I don't actually, I guess where the way we schedule subcommittees, where the chair finds out if people can make a subcommittee meeting and then schedules it, I guess I don't know if we really need a time at all. Not that I think anyone's going to want to have a meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning, but it's like if there are 3 people who happen to be on the same subcommittee and they could all go at 10 o'clock in the morning, I guess why have a rule that says no? But then
Well, and
I don't know.
I was curious how it impacts LTC, though, to change, to change things.
That's certainly a important consideration, I think, given because there is the provision of the rule that says the meeting shall be televised. It does say unless local cable services are unavailable, but I think, if it's the council would prefer that these be televised, then I think that would involve some coordination with LTC. And again, there is that language in there too that does say or as otherwise designated, giving the council a little bit of flexibility. But again, this is one of those that if the council would like to amend this rule and make it more specific, then that's something we can work with the council on.
Well, I would just say, I think it should be if there's a majority vote. I think the idea of it is, there's people that are at work, there's people that want it, we want it televised, even if the rule allows us not to televise it, we want it televised. But if it makes sense for something where it's a senior center, where the majority of the people that are going to be going to the meeting are seniors that are there during the day, then, the council would have the right to amend that, by vote. But I think in general, I don't think, like a parks subcommittee, I don't think it should be held at 10 in the morning, or, we want access to people to be able to make it. So, thank you.
So I think what we're suggesting is it should be rare and kind of very tailored if it would be other than this. And this also says, again, it would be in the council chamber, again, or unless otherwise designated, but I'm assuming that we could do things in the mayor's reception room and then have it televised there, or from there, I should say. So that is something I think we should at least consider if we had, for instance, multiple subcommittees or some other meetings going on at the same time, for instance, the same time as a school committee meeting or something else. So I guess we can, move on. Yes, please.
Just for understanding of how we're
How we're
going
gonna-
to do this at the end. Are we going to compile everything at the end and then move that forward? Is that the plan? Or like this one here, am I looking for a motion to, do it by majority vote? How do you want to handle the?
I guess.
You keeping a list of all
I
the?
am keeping a list, but
Okay.
I think we should maybe sort of summarize them and see if we do want to just move forward with, some cleanup. And as I said, I've got some minor, like typographical things that I can send separately, but maybe I'll summarize at the end and we'll make sure we're on the same page to see what we propose back with the help of the law department. But thank you for that process. That's important. Okay, so moving on to Rule 6. I think there is an important typo in the first line about 4 or 5 members there, so.
4 or 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5, so that I think should be 5. Actually, and I think 5 is the right number because under the Mass General Law, Chapter 43, Section 98, it does seem like it's less than a quorum number, less than a majority from the other, when you've got smaller number of counselors. I think it is 5 there. And other than that, I had no questions unless anybody else does. We can move on to section 7. I had nothing. Section 8. Yeah, actually, in the statute, it does say in the first line, the mayor, if present, shall preside at the meetings and may vote. So it's interesting that I would probably just add that in to be consistent with the statute. I think because some people view a chair as not typically voting, but we clearly have the mayor vote, so it's probably worth just being clear. And it's, this section 8 then says, in the absence of both the mayor and the vice chair, a temporary chairman is chosen, which I assume is just by majority vote of the remaining of the councilors who are there. So we could just clarify the majority vote if need be, or if helpful. Okay, I'll move on to section 9 unless anybody else has a comment. I think I did, I'll just suggest that the vote, the second sentence, the vote upon the appeal from the ruling of the chair shall be by roll call. And I think it should say, and the chair's ruling shall stand unless a majority of the votes are to the contrary, because otherwise it's not clear what stands. I think it's not the appeal that stands unless it's to the contrary. It is that the chair's ruling stands. And I think that may have been in the statute, or I'm not sure where I found that, but I would probably add that clarification. And then it does talk about the presiding officer, if the result is in doubt, may call for a standing vote. And I wasn't sure why we would do a standing vote if we can do a roll call vote. And I'm, in a case where we've got at most 11 people, it just seemed odd.
I personally love the idea of one day being able to ask for a standing vote. That's my objection.
That's why we should take it out.
Before I do it, yeah.
So maybe that's something we could leave with you, Garrett, to just check if there's a reason to keep that, but otherwise it seems to me superfluous and confusing.
Yes, I can certainly look into that, and if change can be made to have it be a roll call vote, then I think that would suffice.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, so section 10, actually, section 10, the second paragraph or sentence, except as above provided, the vote shall be taken by voice. So that suggests that standing somehow is relevant, but why, I don't know. So is odd. So, yeah, I think as we check into that, we can clarify. So we have an order by which counselors are, the votes are taken, where we go through the counselors alphabetically with the next counselor in alphabetical order, starting the roll call during each subsequent meeting. And I wasn't sure, it says at the inaugural and first meeting. So is the inaugural meeting the meeting at which we're sworn in and the mayor is elected, and then the first meeting is the meeting after that, or are they the same? I wasn't sure. I didn't look back at my notes to see who started the roll call at the next. Actually, we could easily look up the minutes to our first meeting back in January. So we met on the 6th to be sworn in, and the minutes of the 13th. Oh, no, but that doesn't help because the order is not there. We'd have to look at the video. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
Counselor
you
Scott.
probably could ask the city clerk how that roll call, the first roll call happens.
I believe the first roll call was the first roll call, and the next meeting is, you're rotating.
So you already start to rotate at the first, like, real, in effect, real meeting?
Yeah,
Okay. So
that's
may-
my recollection.
So maybe we clarify that in here, that, because, again, I'm not sure otherwise what the difference is between inaugural and first meeting, where it now says, it's alphabetical order at the inaugural and first meeting, and then it kind of starts rotating. So it's really, the very first meeting is the swearing-in meeting, and then right thereafter.
Hey, Counsel, I think, recollection from some prior conversations a few years back, I think they were looking as that first meeting as not a meeting, but an inaugural ceremony. And so, I mean, I think
And so
that's
the
why
first
it
meeting is the
differentiated, yeah.
real meeting thereafter, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure it matters, it's just trying to be clear what the expectation is, and, I mean, there are certainly votes taken at that very first swearing-in meeting.
So I guess my question would be, would it be the will of this committee to have it be, essentially as written, where the order of voting at the inaugural and the first meeting be the same? Or start rotating
It's,
after after the inaugural?
Yeah, Counselor.
I think how it works now is how it's written, and it would stay that way, that it's alphabetical, the inauguration, then the first meeting, then rotates.
So the first sort of substantive meeting, yeah. So I think, just clarifying what the inaugural and first is, because in a way, it's not clear if the inaugural, I mean, it's almost definitionally, they are the same, but they're not. So it's the first sort of meeting thereafter. And I have no problem with having Counselor, in this case, Counselor Chow, starting off the roll call on both meetings, and whoever alphabetically is there. Okay. Anything else on Rule 10, otherwise Rule 11? I do think there is a question on Rule 11 in terms of reconsideration motions. It says notice has to be given by noon on the Friday following the meeting, but when we are in like summer session where meetings are every 2 weeks or sometimes 3 weeks apart, is that the right timing, or should it be something else? And I see Councilor McDonough has a thought.
So my thought here is that to me, Friday actually might be too late. Other communities that I've looked at tend to either say the Friday following or within 36 hours of the vote. And I think my understanding of the reason here is that you can reconsider any vote, including expenditure of funds. And so, especially on the summer schedule, you kind of want to know, we don't want a week and a half to go by with the clerk having to, I guess, sit on a vote that authorized or to spend money and then have a reconsideration come in that would now be within the rules. And so I think trying to get the reconsideration in, or at least alert the clerk that the reconsideration is coming within a fairly tight time frame, helps make sure that we're not, I guess, caught in a weird situation.
So your thought is that the notice being early is important for the clerk to be aware and to notify potentially folks within the administration that, like, sort of there is something to be maybe addressed that may change.
Right, because if we take a vote to
Yeah.
authorize out-of-state this is, I'm trying to make as
Yeah,
like
no, I
as
understand,
obscure a one
right.
as I could. So if we take a vote to authorize out-of-state travel, and that means there's going to be a plane ticket bought and whatever, that could happen. As soon as you know that vote is finalized, those purchases could be made, and I think the vote isn't truly finalized while a question of while the potential of a counselor deciding to reconsider that vote exists. and we should absolutely have the right to reconsider, but I don't think it should. I think it has less to do with when the next meeting is scheduled and more to do with how quickly after the vote, so that it kind of becomes, the ink becomes dry on the vote.
So let's just tease that out in terms of by noon on the Friday following the meeting. So in a normal, when we're on normal schedule, the agenda is already out by noon on the Friday. So this is actually a long period of time in those circumstances, because it's inconsistent with, yeah.
Which I think, which I think is why I'm saying, if anything, it would be to move the window closer to the meeting. Like if the reconsideration time were to move, I wouldn't want to make it longer. I think we should probably make it shorter, whether it's, noon on Thursday or we set, because there's also the potential of a special meeting. So if instead of making a day of the week, if we wanted to set, a set number of days or hours after the vote,
So
a day and a half. So I guess the 36 would be a day and a half, or
Although that's-
48 hours. But if the clerk's office is closed, it's closed. But trying to say, so if we have a special meeting, which we haven't had, but if we had a special meeting, that could also be reconsidered. And so now do you get until Friday, or, and so I think,
So maybe
within
close
1 or
of
2 days of the.
business. So one suggestion, I want to turn over to Counselor Scott in a second, but maybe close of business like the second day after. So if it was Tuesday meeting, close the business Thursday, which is when we typically have to put motions in anyway. But I'm sorry, Counselor Scott.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just going to, again, refer to the clerk. It's your department that handles this. So if I came to you at 11:30 on Friday with a motion to reconsider at that timeline, I have a feeling maybe this timeline was before we went to half-day Fridays too, possibly. Maybe the agenda went out later.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
Might
that's
have
all I'm
been.
thinking.
That
So
was
what
a while
time
ago.
frame would work best to have, I mean, there's nothing like statute, like there's no reason that
No.
we have to have it allow a certain amount of time or anything like that.
Just as a matter.
by the close of day,
practical getting the
Thursday is-
agenda out, yeah. I don't think I think we weren't closing at noon at that point.
Yeah, so the close of business Thursday, would that be?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be fine. I would just also recommend that if the language is going to change within the rule, that it specifies that a person giving notice must be on the prevailing side.
Yes.
Yeah, that's in there
It does say
currently,
that,
yeah.
yeah.
It's just the time frame says noon on Friday, right now.
Yeah, so I think that make it earlier, end of business Thursday for the notice
Okay.
part.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we can move on, I'm assuming, to section 12, the agenda. I know, so I know I get the packet by whenever, Saturday morning, whenever it is exactly, but it certainly seems to be no later than 1 o'clock on Saturday. I'm not sure if everybody's, I don't know if everybody has gotten them on time. Just wanted to just check with it, since we're, confirming dates, times, if there's anything there. We're all good?
For delivery, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so this is the.
The agenda comes out on Friday. we get the
It
agenda.
does, and then it says so, yeah, motions have to be submitted by close of business on Thursday preceding a regular meeting, so we'll have to clarify that. It's not the Thursday preceding the meeting for the reconsideration. That's the Thursday right after the meeting. But then it says sort of halfway down that it's delivered electronically and at the request of the counselor, delivered in hand to the member or left at their dwelling place no later than 1 o'clock in the afternoon of the Saturday. So that's the physical packet. I mean, I've been getting it in a timely manner, just checking whether that time seemed to work for everybody, but it doesn't sound like there's any concerns. I just
No concerns.
wanted to raise it and to see. And then it goes on to say that towards the end, it says, certain matters, including communications and emergency appropriations emanating from the office of the city manager shall be submitted by 2:00 in the afternoon of the Monday preceding a regular meeting. So that seems inconsistent with the fact, I mean, it's not, fortunately, we are getting all of those things typically as part of the packet and part of the agenda, so that seems a little inconsistent with, I can understand emergency situations, but this indicates that any matter emanating from the office of the city manager would have until 2 p.m. on the Monday too. So I think unless it's an emergency situation, I think that should probably be struck.
You're saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, please,
So
sorry.
you're saying just to strike the word including communications, but you're allowing, leaving emergency
Yes,
appropriations.
I think that, so maybe accept that emergency appropriations emanating from the office of the city manager.
Appropriations, or is it maybe emergency communications and
Yeah.
appropriations? Like if there's
Yeah.
some urgent
Yeah.
communication he needs to provide, I think that should still be.
That makes sense to me. And then, yeah, and then it says those would be placed on the desk of the counselor before the start of the meeting. So I think just to make sure we're all on board of doing what we have been doing or what has been happening, which is all those things are provided typically.
Time to
and that's-
review and time to read and.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, which is really key. Okay, so then I'd move on to Rule 13. I wasn't sure what this exactly covers. So each city councilor has the privilege of propounding questions of municipal importance to the city manager restricted to items on the agenda. So I don't know what it covers that's not on the agenda, but it sounds like Councilor McDonough may have
I
a
did
theory.
some research.
Great.
So I actually really like Rule 13.
Okay.
I think Rule 13, we don't use Rule 13 right now, and I think Rule 13 actually could save the administration a lot of work if the council used Rule 13 a little bit more appropriately.
Okay, so tell us
And
what that
so
means.
in looking back, one of the people that works at LTC has the LTC archives. If anyone who actually watches this is interested, you can watch city council meetings going back to like 2000. And there are times in the Wayback Machine where at the end of the agenda, it's like the second to last thing on our agenda is propounding questions of municipal import for the city manager that we never have anything under. There's another rule that we'll probably see later. I'm forgetting which. Yeah, I think it's the next. No, it's not the next rule. There's another one about submitting a question of municipal import for inclusion on the agenda. And it looks like the idea there is that, if you have the problem with a basketball hoop at a park, that's not really something that's a motion. And I also think the rule dates before you could text the manager. But the idea was you want to ask a quick question that should get a quick answer and doesn't need a written response and shouldn't need input from, at the time, 8 other counselors, now 10 other counselors. It's just hey, it's the end of the meeting. What's going on with the trash cans at Shed Park? Just that kind of quick public meeting answer to what should be a fairly small question instead of what sometimes happens now, which is, request the city manager work with the appropriate department to answer this fairly small question.
So that does lead us into Rule 14, because that is item 7 on the agenda, questions of municipal importance to the city manager and unanswered motions, which shall only be entered by the city council, not sure what that meant, and shall be submitted to the city clerk's office consistent with the rule for filing motions. So it's consistent with Rule 13, which is, it says you can ask questions of the city manager as long as it's on the agenda. So you put something on the agenda, you're saying that's a question, but not a motion to go dig deeply. Is that how you're reading that?
That is how I'm reading that, and I also see that as, I guess, in talking to a couple people in the administration, I see that as a way to potentially alleviate some of the motion response fatigue, especially where I think sometimes these motions really are closer to questions that could be answered either by the manager or the manager's designee, because it's posted on the agenda and you know the question's coming, and you just could do it all in one meeting instead of kind of waiting for a one-page report that created more work than just being at the meeting, and took longer to get to, and I think everyone went up frustrated, and I think hopefully that would alleviate some of the motion response fatigue. And then the other suggestion, kind of in with Rule 13, I looked, Cambridge had this one that I thought pairs nicely with Rule 13, which is 23B in Cambridge City Council rules, which is that requests to the city manager for information regarding matters that have previously been referred to the city manager for repair or replacement, or items or attention to or implementation of matters which do not require the city council action shall not be placed on the agenda, but shall be referred to the city manager by the member making said request. And I
So
think
you're
a
saying
kind
it
of combination,
clarifies
it
what
clarifies.
these questions.
Yes, so Cambridge doesn't have Rule 13. I guess what I'm saying is if we had something like that laid out, a motion is not that kind of request. That kind of request is a question for the manager that should just be asked and answered. If you feel frustrated that you're not getting a response, quickly, or it's something that, a number of people have said, I really need to know you're asking about this, and so you want to make sure you do it at a meeting so that constituents know, or so that you can say, Jesus, I've asked, for X many weeks and I haven't gotten a response, so I'm asking you right here. But that would just, I guess I'm trying to distinguish between motions that are actually trying to affect city policy or asking us to really do something, and hey, how come this thing that is supposed to be working, that is supposed to be working, why is it not working?
So, Councillor Scott, do you have some
So
thoughts?
I just have a question, trying to
Yeah.
understand that a little bit. So
Yeah.
so you put something on, I don't know, the swing set didn't get fixed or something like that. It's not open for 10 councillors to speak on this issue then, right? I mean, it's not, because that's what happens. We put something on and we end up one comments on it. But if it's something like that, it's just to the manager, right? I mean, there's no
Right, and so the idea would be,
debate, no.
it's your question. You have a question for the manager, ask your question. You don't have a question, and we all need to thank you for no, we shouldn't all thank you for the question. We shouldn't all say, me too, I have that question. That you put the question into your question. And I think by doing that in a rule, Mr. Clerk, we were talking about this before the meeting started. I think by making it kind of a rule, it eliminates some of the keeping up with the Joneses that can happen, where as soon as one other, you ask a question, and then if anybody else wants to say something, the floodgates open and everyone goes, well, I don't want to be the one who didn't talk. And you just say, no, it's not what we're doing right now. Not that I don't trust any of our current colleagues, but just like in the whole kind of, make it a rule and we're all on even playing field.
So,
Yeah, please.
So I guess my
Yeah.
my thoughts around
Yeah,
that, I guess,
please.
is that I think it would be interesting to see, I guess maybe this is research for us to do, but, what works for other councils, like what keeps meetings flowing, doesn't leave lots of time for, different departments answering, long responses. If there's a structure that, gets to the point and kind of works better, I think that would be kind of interesting to see.
Have you, anybody looked at I have watched Cambridge's meetings from time to time, but never to the end, so I don't know if they actually get to this.
We'll assign us all homework
Yes,
sessions
yeah.
to watch different
Yeah,
meetings, I
yeah,
guess, to see
yeah.
if there's anything.
Yeah,
No, I agree with Councillor Scott. I think it was more, I only said, why don't I read all these rules earlier today? Declan was napping and I didn't feel like getting ready for the school year. And I thought it looked like something maybe we should think about to try and, have a little bit of, that there's discipline, and then there's I just put it in a rule.
so,
Not a motion.
yeah, so maybe we all should, this one, it actually, I think, brings us into Rule 14, because I don't think our agendas actually follow Rule 14 anyway. So I think we should look at Rule 14. So what we just discussed was item 7 on Rule 14 and how it relates to Rule 13. So maybe we can divide up Worcester and Cambridge in particular and look at some of their past meetings and see what they do that may be of interest. I have watched some of Cambridge's, and I thought we'd learn a lot, and I at least found that we, I think, do have some good meetings. I'll put it that way. But so the agenda here that's listed shows that we're supposed to start with old business / unfinished business, and then go on to council motions, communications from the manager, communications, report from city officer. I don't know who the city officer is. And then reports of committees, then new business, communications, petitions. So we don't follow this really at all, or mostly not. So I don't know. So I think we should either conform this to what we do or conform what we do to this or a variant of it. And I'd love thoughts. Yes, yes.
Because my first question is for the clerk, I guess, is how would you / I guess parliamentary practice define old business? It's one of those things that I feel like gets a little bit nebulous.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have a thing that's unfinished business, saying that there was a, normally unfinished business, if we didn't go past 10 o'clock, I'd put everything under unfinished business. That's how it's used now. Old business, I don't know. It's tied in with unfinished business, and that's how that's used. Unfinished business. I just kind of put everything under that we did not get to in the prior meeting, but it had get held off.
So I guess that is my understanding of unfinished business. I guess I like to check it because, again, depending on what board you're on and who's running what, it sometimes does get confusing. I guess if we look at Rule 13 and we think about ways to try and better define what kind of council motions, orders, resolutions look like versus like a question motion, I would be interested in maybe not having the old business, keeping unfinished business at the top, because that's, if we had a reconsideration, if the meeting ended abruptly and we need to, that's what you do. But then, provided we clean up what motions look like, I think that an awaiting response section that is probably bundled together but leaves them on the agenda is probably, I think, would be appropriate.
Is it Councilor Scott?
Sorry, just not sure I understood. So you're talking about removing unfinished business? Is that what you're saying? Oh, just old business. Okay.
And so we'd start with unfinished business. We also do have right now public hearings, which are not they happen at 7 o'clock. I don't know, Mr. Clerk, is there a reason they happen at 7 o'clock or as close to 7 as we can? Just curious.
I believe there's some statutory requirements that may be involved with that, but it's always been at 7. Historically, maybe they wanted to have people settle in and get an opportunity to get there. But that's all I can tell you.
I would assume to make sure the meeting wasn't starting late or whatever for some reason, that they're advertised hearings, so they
Yes,
want to make sure they're.
Yeah, they are public, so yeah, the public should know roughly when they're going to start. I'm sorry, yes.
No, that's all right, Counselor. And to add, maybe a little something to this conversation. So there is a principle in Robert's rules regarding custom. So something that's not necessarily written in the rules, a legislative body or other organization that has done something a certain way for so long, at some point it becomes this custom, and it essentially acts as if that is a rule. So I think around some of these things, it's sort of a customary thing for, those of us who watch the meetings, is the moment of silence that occurs.
Yeah,
like that's
yeah,
something that's not on the
exactly.
agenda, but it's something that the council has always done, so that at some point that custom essentially becomes sort of an unofficial, unwritten rule of the body, just to add some context to sort of some of these things.
Just, and you're talking about the hearings, like you couldn't put the hearings in order.
No, I
because
understand,
7 o'clock,
because,
like we've done motions ahead of the hearings, we've done.
Yeah, well, we do, actually, they are in the agenda at a certain point. They are usually section like 4 or whatever, because but it's just more trying to make sure we think about what we are doing. And so I guess, yeah, so unfinished business, there are sort of the, not administrative, but the sort of, there's the mayor's business where sometimes people are honored. There's the moments of silence. Some of those things often happen at the beginning. Then the council motions, communications, and from the city manager, and there are votes from the manager. I don't really know what item 4 is, what communication reports from city officer.
Yep, Council, it may be department heads. It may be department heads.
That's what I was wondering.
And would unfinished business, would that include, no, I guess that wouldn't be. Old business, I was just thinking like the city clerk's report of minutes and everything, would that be like
Oh,
old
right.
business? Would that be the definition possibly of what fit in that category? Why it was there?
Yeah.
I think that's possible. Again, this could be it's just sort of maybe old and outdated, but
So maybe we can
that's a very
update this.
possible
Yeah.
interpretation of that, yeah.
Yeah, I looked at the July 14th agenda, and the order was mayor's business, which was Zoom and any recognition, city clerk, the minutes, public hearings, which included both general and utility public hearings that day, votes from the city manager, ordinances from the city manager, subcommittee reports, executive session, and announcements. And there would have been motions in there. I just skipped that because it was already in here. So maybe we try to conform what's here more to what we are doing, so that just so people aren't confused. And, yeah, and I had a couple other things, but please, Councilor McDonough.
I was just going to say, we had talked about this at the last rules subcommittee meeting, and I guess while we're doing the full revision, I would really like to move motions lower on the agenda, move communications, what's currently called communications from the city manager, higher on the agenda. The reason for that just being that oftentimes the city manager's portion of the agenda comes with a number of other city employees who are either going to be here to answer questions related to, or to give some sort of report related to, and that would just try and get that done before 8 o'clock.
Not to play devil's advocate, but the
No,
motions
please, yeah.
usually have residents that are here to speak on them, and so I guess it's kind of, the city staff is here till 8 for the most part on Tuesday nights. I mean, so I don't know. I'm sure there was some logic to the way it was done.
Sorry.
No, please.
It does look like the council's
We should have a
gone.
real conversation.
We've ping-ponged, the council has ping-ponged on this. It looks like I don't know what the cycle is. I guess we're already in the habit and well within our right to suspend the rules to take really any item out of order. And while motions do often have, at least one motion on a given agenda might have a resident here to speak, I think in those cases, to me, in those cases, that's something where it's a suspension to take out of order could make sense, where I'd be hard pressed to say a majority of motions have a member of the public here to speak on, where the alternative, I think, is that most of the city manager's piece has input from other city staff.
So, yes, please, Councilor Scott.
Just one more question. I don't mean to keep putting
No.
the clerk on the hot spot here, but, so, just for this section, I mean, your department is obviously the one that's handling this. I mean, would there be a way to come back with like an order that you think you typically follow and that makes sense for the flow of the meeting? I mean, is it?
However you guys set the agenda items, it's not an issue for me. From a practical point and from an administrative point, it is kind of difficult when things are suspended to take out of order during the course of a meeting for two reasons. It interrupts the flow of it, and that's a small space to work, so, and I've got everything, so just for, it can be done. It's a little bit more difficult when things are taken out of order during the course of a meeting, because I think it interrupts the flow of the meeting, and also administratively between myself and the mayor, we have stacks of votes, and it's just, there's not a lot of room up there, so you're waiting on me, and he's waiting on me, and so,
So is it usually like the city, what do you think it is? The city manager communications or the motions that are usually taken out of order for residents? Like
everything.
Everything,
Everything's
yeah.
been recent, it's been almost everything. There's been votes
It's
taken
not
out
gonna-
of order, there's been orders taken out of order, motions taken out of order, petitions taken out of order. Anything on the agenda has been subject to be taken out of order.
So but people residents are supposed to sign up to speak ahead of time, and
Correct.
that it doesn't always happen, but when it does, we would know, or you would know, which motions have people in the audience to speak. So maybe.
If they do, yep.
Yeah, so maybe we think about how to play, because that's the concern, is we don't want residents and we don't want employees to have to spend hours just waiting. So maybe the motions where there is a registered speaker ahead of time, hopefully that doesn't result in like people just putting a registered speaker. And I think part of maybe our message as a subcommittee to our fellow counselors is to talk about the need for just, thoughtfulness on.
Well, if we could restructure where we're not having as many motions, I guess, and there's more
Oh, that's
kind
a
of like
question, yes.
just a
Yes.
business type of, maybe that would take away from, having to go through some of the motions that,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
One last thing on this.
yeah, please.
The language that says with agenda.net on Rule 14, you should just coincide with agenda software. Agenda.net was a product that we had years
Oh.
ago, a garbage
Okay.
product. if I might
Okay.
Editorialize.
Oh, thank you. No, that's,
Maybe it just coincide with agenda software.
yeah. So, right, so we'd start with unfinished business. We have the mayor's business, city minute, the clerk, the minutes from the clerk, the public hearings. And then perhaps, so the suggestion is to do the communications from the city manager and then the motions from the city council, except to the extent that there are registered speakers, the members of the public registered to speak, in which case those could be brought earlier based on a motion to suspend the rules, but only in the cases where there is a member of the public registered to speak. Does that seem like something to suggest?
well, I'm okay with the current format. So I think we have more of an issue of what's being put on possibly than the structure that they're put on in. So that's kind of keep things the way they've always been, I guess, what people are used to for this section, but.
I do think it does get confused. I mean, as someone who's a newer counselor, although I've watched a lot of the meetings, I do think we have a lot of suspension of rules that are hard, that, again, I appreciate when it's an individual, but I'm not sure that sometimes it's not just a preference, so that's.
I will say just for the edification of the viewing public, my understanding, and anyone here, Mr. Clerk or solicitor, my understanding of parliamentary procedure, though, is that it's a 2/3 vote to suspend the rules. So if the body actually had a problem with how frequently this was being done, we kind of are coming up on it's okay to vote no.
So I was reading Robert's
Oh,
rules
thank you.
today, and generally, so it depends, and that's the lawyer answer. It depends on what rule is being suspended. So a lot of times it is a 2/3 vote, but there are some cases where a suspension of the rules can be a majority vote.
So in the circumstance we're talking about where the rules would be suspended because of somebody from the public being there, do you know roughly where that would fall? Because I don't know the distinction.
I did read the rule today.
Yeah,
don't
no, I
remember off the
appreciate
top
that
of
you
my
did.
head.
Thank you.
But I could, in terms of the flow of this meeting, I
Yeah.
can
Why
write
don't we
down
take that?
question.
Yeah, so why don't we, I think this is an important piece, and I think should also get to the motion piece. But if we are maybe heading towards the idea of trying to implement questions of municipal importance as an actual thing, which now is not, and then And as written here, it includes not only those kinds of questions rather than kind of motions, but also it covers unanswered motions, but those would have to be submitted to the city clerk's office. So it's part of the, like, there'd be a list of what can be covered in section 7. I think at this point, I'm thinking we would try to promote that in light of the prior discussion, and maybe reserve further discussion around sort of the order of, the motions versus the reports, and try to think about what is practical there. Because I can appreciate, frankly, even trying to follow the minutes and read the minutes is hard when we've had suspension of the rules and we jump back and forth when there are things that are interconnected. I think that's tough for the audience who's going to try to rely on the minutes too. So and then the other things that are here, there's new business mentioned. So we've got communications from the city manager, communications, reports from the city officer, which there is a later section that says any communication in Rule 23, any communication from department heads for action by the city council requires the city manager's approval. So all of those, I think, are communications from the city manager. I'm not sure what actually is different here. So I think section 4 doesn't really make sense to me. So I would suggest deleting it since it's not clear what it covers. But yeah, Councilor McDonough.
I was just going to suggest that I think, to your point, instead of having a communications from the city manager and communications reports from city officer, it might be more useful to just have a votes from the city manager and a communications from the city manager, because I think that's how I think that's how it's currently used. And so that way, and part of the reason, not to belabor my council motions thing, but part of my thought on the votes from the city manager moving up is that tends to be, unless there's a public hearing, a vote from the city manager is the only definitive action. Like, those are the definitive actions taken at a meeting, and so it actually is where the majority of the discussion probably should be, because those are the final acts, either in amending like a policy order from the manager or in spending money from the manager, and then differentiating that from, here's the update on road work being done on whatever street, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually on our July 14th agenda, it had votes from city manager and ordinances from city manager, which to me seem like they should all be bundled together. So we may delete item 4, reports of committees we need. I don't know what new business is under item 6. We certainly do have petitions from the public, and I think that's obviously very important. I don't know if that there's sort of new business communications otherwise. We do have executive session from time to time, so that is an agenda item that we probably should include. And we have an announcement section, which I think is fair and good to include for the public, to know what's going on. So I would probably add those to it. Councilor McDonough?
Yes. The other, and this is my last Cambridge rules. Worcester and Cambridge had similar rules. I just liked the way that Cambridge's were written, which is why I keep going to theirs. One thing that they had, which is Rule 23E, if you want to look it up yourself, is the concept of a consent agenda for the manager. So instead, it's basically the reverse of what we currently do, where by default, each item is individually read, voted on, debated and voted on, and instead, so it's each consent agenda is voted on in its entirety with no discussion. By request of a single city councilor, items can be removed from the consent agenda for a separate vote. And upon such request, the item will be moved to the appropriate section of the agenda. Placement of items on the city manager's consent agenda is determined by the city manager. Placement of items on the communications consent agenda shall be at the discretion of the city clerk. So instead of what we currently do, which is we get to all of the votes that one of 11 councilors thinks, well, these are probably non-controversial, suspend the rules and bundle items whatever to whatever. Instead, we would turn that, we would do the opposite. We would say, city manager, you have all of these votes for out of state travel or what the fairly routine, you have routine votes that you as the city manager think are routine votes. You can put them all on the consent agenda. That doesn't mean there is no debate. It means that if any of the 11 of us did want to pull something to talk about, we would pull it and say we want to talk about that, as opposed to, by default, we talk about all of them. Yeah.
Pre-bundling. You're
Yeah, it's sort of
pre-bundling.
pre-bundling.
Yeah, which I have no issue with that.
So but
Basically, pre-bundling at the discretion of the manager. You can pull from the bundle if you object to something that's been bundled. But that way, both for record keeping, for us, because sometimes every now and then, I think we all wait for somebody else to be the person to bundle at that time, and you miss one, and then
Yeah,
so
that's
we
a fair
take a
point.
separate vote on one, and then we bundle the remainder. And so instead, we just say, if you want to talk about it, pull it. Otherwise, this is what we think is non-controversial, and go from there.
So basically, the suggestion is that the city manager could pre-bundle votes that he thinks are non-controversial. And you mentioned the city clerk, but doing something, I don't remember what.
I have, the communications consent agenda, which I didn't, I need to figure out what that looks
Yeah.
like more in a meeting. I've seen, and I've watched a couple of Cambridge City Council meetings, and I've seen the manager's consent agenda and how that is implemented. I have yet to find a meeting that I've seen a section of to see what the communications consent agenda looks like.
So maybe then we would propose the city manager could pre-bundle the votes that he deems non-controversial, but with the language from there that they can be unbundled if appropriate, but maybe not address the second part of that, since we don't know what it means. Okay, that makes sense to me. And so, yeah, did you have anything there? Okay, so then moving on to 15, relinquishing the chair. The only thought I had there is, it sounds like the chair, so let's say the mayor, could relinquish the chair to speak, but could call any counselor to it. But I think it would be the vice chair unless the vice chair is not there. And I think that's fair and appropriate. So I would probably try to just clarify that for that circumstance. I think it's, it's what we do, but it also makes sense to reflect that. Unless anybody had any thoughts, we can move on. Item 16, I had no questions. Item 17, so just so we're all clear, the rule is no counselor may speak more than twice or more than 5 minutes at any one time, except it doesn't apply to questioning the city manager, department heads, or people appearing before the city council. So I'm not sure exactly what's left. And then the counselor who makes the original motion can speak last, even if they've spoken twice. So, I mean, just sort of more pointing it out, I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Item 18, rules of debate. You can interrupt for a motion of personal privilege or point of order. 19, discipline of members. I'll move on to 20. is motions and the withdrawals. I did have a question about, it says in the fourth bullet, if there is objection to the withdrawal of a question, any counselor may move to grant withdrawal. I didn't actually understand what that meant. Anybody? No? So should we delete it? Oh,
no.
go ahead, please.
So
You don't want to delete it?
No, you don't want to delete that.
Okay.
Hopefully,
Well,
we never
somebody
need it. It's been a number of years.
Okay.
But my understanding is that once the chair, these are sequential.
Mm-hmm.
So you can withdraw your own motion at any time up until the chair reads the motion.
Okay.
If the chair reads the motion, it's not your motion anymore. It's the body's motion. And so even if you now, after the chair has read the motion, if you say, well, I want it gone, it's kind of out of your hands now, and someone needs to basically make another motion to allow you to withdraw your motion.
Well, so it says the motion can be withdrawn if it's been stated by the chair before it's been seconded, unless someone objects. So I get that.
Oh, hold on.
That's the third bullet. So let's say someone objects, because that brings us to 4. So if there's an objection.
Sorry, I missed. I missed.
Okay,
a step.
so that's-
if anyone, because it's now the
Kind of out
body's
there.
motion.
Yeah.
So Counselor A makes a motion, whatever, decides I want to pull that back, but it's been seconded and read by the chair, and I, who didn't make the motion, happen to really like that motion. I could object to the member withdrawing because I want to talk about that motion, but now somebody else, I object, so it's not a withdrawal by unanimous consent, so now it would require a vote to say, no, sorry, Counselor McDonough, that motion went away.
So, but I guess that's not what I read this to say. It doesn't actually say that. It
Yeah.
says it hasn't been seconded, you made a motion, I object to your withdrawal of it. So then we're in item 4, there's an objection to the withdrawal, then any counselor may move to grant withdrawal. So you're saying, okay, oh, I see. So what you're saying is, I objected to it, so somebody else could move, and now there's just a motion on the floor, and it's unrelated to the 5th bullet, which is a different scenario. I see, okay. I actually now get it, although it took a long time.
lost in my initial.
Okay, I think I get it. Yes,
see.
please.
Yeah, see, and I'm,
It's confusing.
sorry.
Yeah,
I have a question on this one a little bit. So I think it should be that the council may move to not grant withdrawal, is what I think it is. So I think you might want it removed, but a counselor can challenge that, and then it's still on the floor.
yeah, maybe just clarifying it, because I think they sort of get at it with the interplay between the 3rd and the 4th, but I think you're getting at is, somebody can say, you want to withdraw, don't withdraw it, and then you're going to go
vote.
get your Roberts rules.
So we can go back and visit that after.
Yes, yeah, so maybe we'll come back, this
Yeah,
is
we don't
another
have to
one
take
where
too
it's
much
sort of
time.
like, so open to
Yeah.
review. Okay, cool. So we'll do that. We'll figure
Review
out
the
a better
language.
language and look at Robert's rules and see if there's a way to frame it that doesn't confuse me. Okay, so otherwise 20 made sense to me. Move on, 21, anything there?
No.
22, 23, 24. There was a question here. Yep, please, go ahead.
Only because there's been some
Yeah.
confusion, and so I think on Rule 22, if we could just get clarifying language in the council rules on what kind of vote is required to take from the table. I'm pretty confident it's a majority vote, but I've also heard some people say that it's a 2/3 vote, and so I think just putting the actual number on that might be useful.
So clarify whatever Robert's rule says, the vote,
Right.
the number, yeah. Okay, probably, that certainly is helpful, rather than trying to read it on the fly. All right, so then item 24. I was confused by the end also, so an order, if it refers to a matter which can be properly acted upon by the city manager, is referred to by the chair unless the chair, upon objection by some counselor, is overruled by the city council. I guess I just was confused by this.
Shall
be referred by the chair. So maybe it just means it's automatically referred to the city manager unless somebody, by the mayor, unless somebody objects. Is that your?
My kind of interpretation here was that this was a safety, not that it was intended that way, but that if when you submit your motion, that really should say request the city manager, blah, 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 blah. If you forget the magic, request the city manager phrasing, that the chair can take the motion that says, let's put a stop sign at Chapel and Elm. No, the city council can't do that. Refer this to the city manager.
I see. Okay, no, okay, no, I can, if that's, yeah, maybe we can figure out how to make it clearer, but that, I get that. That makes sense, okay. So then we've got Rule 25, attendance by the city manager. I thought it was interesting that the city manager doesn't have to typically be present at the meetings, so that, thank goodness, usually he is. And then is given at least 1 week after receipt of the question to reply. So just so we all know that. And then, although then it goes on to say the city manager, city solicitor, and city auditor or designees shall attend all city council meetings. So it's a little confusing about whether they should or shouldn't, but, or the manager. Councilor Scott, did you have something you wanted to touch on?
No.
Okay. So then we've got meetings open to the public, and this allows citizens and employees of the city and business owners or council who represents, I assume each group meaning any of them, has an opportunity to be heard. And do we think there's any other category of person who should have a right to speak as opposed to through a suspension of rules or other process? Councilor McDonough?
There are two. The first one would just to make sure that we are explicit in saying that nonprofits that operate in the city of Lowell would constitute like a business for the purpose of this. And then the other one would be
So that would not be a business owner,
Right.
It's sort of a nonprofit, like
a non-business.
well, but like it's not the owner, it's like it's really the like executive, the CEO
yeah,
equivalent.
designee of the, yeah.
Because even a business owner might not be appropriate if it's a publicly held company. It could be, yeah, so, I
Right.
mean, it didn't even dawn on me until you suggested this.
Yeah, so I guess city-owned business / I'm not sure on the wording for nonprofit operating within the city, and their designee, and then I think also would be. It could also be council or other designee, and then we just need a rule for how we know you're a designee. So if they're a lawyer, we know they're the designee because they have an ethics, right? If I'm Jim from Community Advocacy Land, and I'm here on behalf as the designee of that group of whoever. I think we would need, maybe the clerk needs some kind of like signed statement from who they're there on behalf of, or if it's a nonprofit and you're sending a board member who's a non-attorney board member or a non-attorney employee, I'm here on behalf of with the signature of somebody with authority to designate you, yeah.
Okay, yeah, Councilor.
No, I would just agree with that. So if I just jotted down, if they're officially speaking on behalf of a Lowell business or nonprofit, that they would be allowed. to speak. That was kind of that they're officially, representing that group.
But I also think that we need to specify that they only get one.
Oh, yes.
You only get one designee. You don't, if you're a business operating in the city of Lowell and you want to have, a bunch, or a nonprofit, whatever, you want to have a bunch of people who don't live in the city speak on your behalf, I think that kind of flies, and that's not what I would read the intention of this to be. But you do get, one singular designee to speak on your behalf.
Well, the other thing about that is that you could leave it, I know, I've spoken in front of the Tewksbury Board, I live on the town line. They have to vote when you're, not within the categories here, that you could leave it kind of like, these are who we allow, citizens and employees, or other, per the city council vote, or so that it's not a given that everyone gets to speak that is not within those categories.
I mean, I do think that it's fair, like, I understand why the business owners are listed, and so I do think it's fair that people who have a real stake in the community, even if they don't live here or work, or aren't a city employee, but they, and clearly we have had nonprofits speak before the nonprofit subcommittee and other ways, so I think it does make sense for this to be a little looser without having to have a vote, which becomes pro forma and isn't really meaningful. But I think, other folks who are from outside the city, it's worth having that vote. So I think something along the lines of, as you were suggesting, sort of this combination, somebody officially representing, speaking on behalf of a business that's in, based in Lowell, or, does business in Lowell, or a nonprofit that does business in Lowell.
So it could be one delegate, whatever, officially speaking on behalf of a Lowell business.
Yeah, or nonprofit. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And your point, Councilor McDonough, about it being one, that they don't have 20 designees. Yeah. But there could be 20 residents who are speaking on whatever matter. Yep, so that makes sense. Okay. And then the rules here, I think it was here, says that the person has to register with the clerk by 4:30 on the day of the meeting, but I believe our agenda says 4 p.m. It says all requests must be done before 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting. So I'm assuming 4 p.m. is the right deadline, Mr. Clerk, and we should clarify that. Okay, and then the rules say that they must register in a book to be provided therefore, or by telephone prior to the closing of the clerk's, or by mail. But again, our agenda says if you wish to speak, you have to register by sending email to the clerk or calling. So I think we should just reflect what the practice has been, which is what's on the agenda. And then, so the rules say they have to register by giving name and address, but the agenda says those wishing to speak have to send an email, again, maybe, or a phone call indicating the agenda item and a phone number to call so they can be issued the Zoom link. So I think we should clarify, probably having them give their name, their address, and maybe the organization they are speaking on behalf of, if they're, now that we're clarifying that, business nonprofit thing, and then the phone number, because that's the mechanics for the clerk to send them the Zoom link, if that's how they're joining. I don't believe we specify here how long anybody has to speak. I think our rules are typically, or we typically say 3 minutes, but I did not notice that in here. No, does it say?
It's in there.
It is? It is? I don't know.
Yes, Counselor, it's about halfway down.
It is?
The first paragraph.
For no more than 3 minutes. Thank you. Perfect, thank you. Yep. And then, in terms of thinking about these rules, because I know that the law office is also trying to integrate the rules for subcommittees and other committees and all, do we expect or need the public to register to speak before a subcommittee? I'm assuming sort of the process would be the same, but is that,
Also,
yep,
normally, there is no requirement because the subcommittees are a smaller group, and usually the chair just opens it up to the public. There's no requirement to, from my office anyway, didn't coincide that rule with subcommittee hearings because of the nature of the subcommittee meeting, and it's just not as many articles, as many items of discussion on there.
does anybody have any concern? No, okay. And I know that the Roberts Rules things about a meeting of the committee of the whole, which I had to look up before this meeting, and I have no idea how that actually works, but we'll. All right, I guess we'll just leave it for now. So moving on to Rule 26. 26A. Each person, the end of the first paragraph, each person shall speak not more than 5 times and for not more than 3 minutes each time. But this is about citizen, let's see. So it's interesting because it starts in the second sentence about citizens and employees, so it's limited to those 2 groups, have the opportunity to speak at budget hearings for not more than 5 minutes at the beginning. And then, but alternatively, if you are looking at a portion of the budget concerning various departments, which is, for instance, how we did the budget this year, each person can speak not more than 5 times and for not more than 3 minutes each time. So that's odd. If it's all done at once, they have 5 minutes at the beginning, and otherwise people could speak basically for 15 minutes in 3-minute chunks. It just seems odd. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it's 5 minutes at the commencement, so it's
Right.
like an opening comments about the budget, and then as you go through the budget, I think they can
I
speak, but
see.
they limit it, because probably at some point, there's probably maybe someone that could speak on every single subject on the budget,
Yeah,
where
right,
they're
yeah.
telling them, I guess, put that within your first 5 minutes if you want
Yeah.
to do that. So I'm sure there was some consideration into why those times were incorporated into there.
Okay, because I was assuming, so you're saying they could speak not more than 5 times in total, like if they wanted to, they'd have to pick the 5 departments they cared about. Is that what you're
Or
thinking?
incorporate
Yeah. In
the other ones
beginning,
into the
right.
beginning.
I see, okay, so I hadn't appreciated that, the not more than 5 times, sort of tying back to the department in effect. So that is helpful, maybe we can clarify, yeah. It's not, I was thinking it like for each one department, they'd get 15 minutes, but no, you're saying they can pick 5 departments and speak 3 minutes, yeah, each. Okay, now that's helpful, because I was just confused. Then this one does not, by right, allow any business, nonprofit, or designee, or anybody else to speak. This is only employees and citizen residents, really. I don't know if we have any thoughts on that.
Part of me thinks for the sake of kind of just doing the same thing across the board, that whatever the final language is in 26, as far as who is allowed to address the body without a suspension of the rules, I think that language should also be the language in 26A.
So I think the only reason not to would be because we have really strict deadlines about getting the budget done. It's given to us at a certain time, we only have a certain amount of time by which we have to. So that's the only reason, but I agree otherwise conceptually, Councilor
Yeah,
Scott.
and I would just comment that I think that the reality is that no one would not allow a local business that had a concern about something in the budget from coming forward and speaking. So I think the reality is that it's what we actually, the practice that we do anyway, so, thank you.
I think that's kind of, that's more or less what I'm saying, and I'm just trying to limit how often we kind of do a perfunctory suspension of the rules, and so, yeah, if we were almost certainly going to allow them to speak anyway, so then we might as well just say they're allowed to speak. That's all.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I like the consistency piece, and I guess we could see if we, we can always, hopefully we don't run out of time ever. That's my only concern with the budget. But I do like the consistency. Okay, moving on to 27. Yeah, so this, so all ordinances have 2 readings. The second reading by title only, if it's at the same meeting as the first and no member objects. And then, but if it requires a public hearing, the second meeting doesn't take place until after the public hearing is held. So it does sound like you could actually potentially do a first reading, a public hearing, a second reading. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how you'd know that. That's how, it was just a little confusing, but I think it's probably not worth, at this point, dealing with anything. Actually, in item 28, the stages of legislation, yeah, actually, if you look at chapter 43, section 22, actually section 20, which is mentioned, you can't pass an ordinance on the date it's introduced except in a special emergency involving health or safety of the people or the property. So it wouldn't happen, these two have to play together that way. So anything there? Otherwise, 29. So each ordinance, the states, requires a written memo with an opinion from the city solicitor on the legality of the material. So, okay, moving on to 30. We've got the language for how ordinances have to be written. 31. Yep, Robert's rules. 32. I think 32, let's see, 32, anything on suspension of rules?
Yeah, 32 actually answers our question about suspension of the rules, where, never mind a 2/3 vote, you need two objections and you're not suspended. The way I read this, if 2 councilors object to suspending the rules, you're not suspending the rules. I guess, unless 2 councilors objecting kicks it over to Roberts for the manner of voting to suspend the rules.
I know, I wasn't, yeah, now that you read it. I didn't have a comment on it, but now I'm confused.
Counselor?
Yes, I'm
if I
sorry.
may. So I read that unless objected to by 2 counselors, that I'm reading that as modifying the voice vote.
Yeah, that's
So
what
I
I'm
think if
wondering.
2 counselors object to the voice vote, then it would probably have to be, a roll call. Or a standing vote unless we amend that rule to have it be a roll call.
Okay, so maybe we can just clarify with that, so we don't have that question. Thank you.
Counselor, if I may, too.
Yes, please.
This is, this Rule 32 has been used when we waive Rule 5 in terms of time, going over the 10 o'clock time. So I would recommend that language be added in 32, that with exception of Rule 5.
So,
And Rule 5 addresses that as a majority. So there was a conflict there, and at 10 o'clock, to be honest, nobody wanted to resolve a conflict usually.
okay. So basically, just so I'm clear, so Rule 32 basically says we can suspend the rules as long as it's we're not sure if it's majority or whatever Robert's rules say, because there are some 2/3 rules that Mr. Ballou is going to look up. But that, so it'll be majority or two-thirds. It would be by a voice vote unless two counselors want a roll call vote for the suspension of rules. And then
I think to the solicitor, this is procedural fun. I think the reason it takes 2 votes to stop going past 10 o'clock is because they keep trying to suspend the rules to go past 10 o'clock, when Rule 5 says if we just followed the rule, we could follow the rule and take a majority vote to go past 10 o'clock.
That may be, Counselor. I think I would have to maybe think on that a little more before I offer a formal answer.
So basically, but just so I'm clear about what the clerk is getting to, is that basically we should not be using the suspension of rules to deal with going past 10 o'clock. We have a rule that covers it. Is that correct? Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
thank you.
that's correct.
Okay, all right. So not use suspension of rules to go past, to deal with 10 o'clock. Okay, thank you. Now I get it. Okay, so then 33, amendment of the rules, which is what I'd read at the beginning, or 34 and 35, I think have titles that should be updated because they both say amendment of rule, but I think 4, I was thinking might be something like presentation of appropriation application, and then 35 might be zoning amendment petition as the titles. But I'm not wedded to the wording. And then 34 requires that an appropriation order or transfer requires the department head to be at the meeting and give a detailed explanation. So I don't know if we always do that. And it shall not be acted upon until the department head appears in person. So that's a pretty strict, but I don't think that's always the case. So,
You should probably fill that hole before somebody takes advantage of it.
so I think we should clarify that, yes. So, I think really the goal is that somebody could be the, if there are questions, then that's appropriate, but it doesn't mean the action can't be taken to do a transfer or to do an appropriation.
Yeah, or the department head or their designee, I guess, could be.
Right, but I'm not sure that always there's a designee. If they were transferred to the police department, for some small amount of money, I'm not sure that we always have.
Maybe the department head or the chief by the CFO.
Okay, so maybe department head, their designee, or the CFO. Does that make sense to you, Counselor Scott? Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, so then 35, which is about zoning amendments. Okay, 36 is that committee of the whole, which I still don't know what that does. I did read it, but unless Rule 36. My understanding from Robert's rules is the committee of the whole is when you're just sort of wanting to have kind of conversation among the council, but it's kind of vague. I'm not sure what.
We've talked sometimes about having a committee of the whole meeting on something where everyone wants, it was going to be referred to a subcommittee, but everybody's invested in the conversation, so it was used in the place of
Okay,
a
so it's
subcommittee meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I've just never.
It is like a special meeting, I guess. I mean, that's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've just never actually experienced one, I guess, or seen one. But it exists in Robert's rules, and clearly you've experienced one, so it's probably appropriate to keep it. So then, okay, so 37, so we're going to get to the committees and Counselor Rourke's perspective, not perspective, that's not fair, motion. 38, about the mayor's portrait, 39, So I think just so we all are aware, 2C, any votes taken during a meeting in which a member participates remotely shall be by roll call. So that's a requirement here. So if somebody's on, one of the counselors is on Zoom, every vote has to be by roll call. And then to the executive session, a counselor could be remote if alone in the room that they're doing it in. Rule 40 is about allowing the public to participate remotely. And then Rule 41 is about censuring a member of the city council, so we could add just the title to that one. No, yes, that's in the 2024 version. I'll just let Counselor McDonough finish reading it, and then we can. Okay, so we can either summarize what we've covered here, but this might be the opportunity to talk about the motion made by Counselor Rourke, because that might sort of suggest something different. So Counselor Rourke's motion was to, and then part of what he discussed on the floor was to, for the remainder, and I think by remainder, he means October, November, December, so post-September, when we're in the sessions already, of having meetings twice a month, to have the meetings run, basically to have the full city council meetings be twice a month, and then to use the alternate weeks to have a sort of in-depth subcommittee meetings, so not the ones constrained by the sort of 5:30 to 6:20-ish window, so that the subcommittees could go into more depth. And hopefully I'm not putting words into his mouth, but this is what I understood. And with the idea that because there would, with the thought that more work would be sent to the subcommittees, because in part there would be more opportunity for the subcommittees to meet. We have been challenged by trying to have meetings. So the meetings of the subcommittees would be more in-depth, and his proposal that he made on the floor was that there would be 6 subcommittees rather than the 21 that we have right now. Each would have 5 members, so they would not be a quorum of the city council, but they would have enough kind of, heft to them in terms of a broad spectrum of input. And his thought was that everything could be sort of rejiggered from the existing 21 into 6 that he mentioned, and I tried to rejigger them. I'm not sure, I don't know exactly what he thought would be, but the ones he mentioned were a neighborhood subcommittee, economic development, zoning, municipal matters, public safety, and finance. And as I said, I tried to jigger them. I think some might shift into one or the other, but I could. And so the thinking would be we might do 2 meetings a night on the Tuesdays when the city council is not in session. So either like a 5:30 to 7, and then a 7 to 8:30, or you could do 5:30 to 7:15, and a 7:15 to 9, depending on how much we think time is needed for the meetings. And then he suggested to me separately that on the days when we do have a city council meeting, there still could be the 5:30 to 6:25-ish time. So what that would mean is that in the course of a month, you would have a normal city council meeting with one subcommittee. Before that, the next week, you would have two subcommittees meeting. The week after that would be a city council meeting with a subcommittee meeting, and then two subcommittee meetings the week after. So in the course of 4 weeks, you'd have two full city council meetings and 6, one of each of the subcommittee meetings. It did look at, so far, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We've had 14 or so subcommittee meetings, in the course of the last 7.5 months. And there are some others that have been, that have been referred to subcommittees. There are matters that have been referred to subcommittees, but they haven't met. So anyway, that's our topic for discussion. Did you, yeah, Councilor McDonough?
The first thing I was going to suggest is this comes from Worcester's council rules, and I got to pull the citation, but regarding subcommittee meetings, because we don't define subcommittees in council rules, so they're kind of seemingly all at the discretion of the mayor to begin with. Like, as of right now, there's nothing to appeal to. 2 was that any motion, so Worcester has a rule that if as a councilor you make a motion and that motion is referred to a subcommittee, you are entitled to a hearing in front of that subcommittee in your capacity. By defining it in rules, in your capacity as a councilor, you can now attend, sit, and speak on this motion since you're not on the subcommittee. But you're the maker of the original motion. You're allowed to try and flesh out your idea that was referred to the subcommittee without having to do the song and dance of pretending that you're speaking as a private citizen who just happens to know the inner workings of the city councilor who made that motion's mind. Which doesn't actually, right now that could, we do a workaround right now. I guess that was just to, if we want more work done at subcommittees, this is just to help make sure that councilors who initiate an idea at least have an opportunity, if it's not a subcommittee they're on, to try and flesh out that idea in subcommittee.
Do you know what the makeup of the subcommittees is in Worcester? Because if we were to go with 5, and now you have a 6th person who is, okay. Yeah.
So the majority of their subcommittees are as ours currently are, which was 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah. So,
Yeah.
So one of the challenges of this.
If we were to go to a 5-member subcommittee, that would be a challenge. I guess that's why I'm off. We are not at a 5-person subcommittee yet, which is why I wanted to put this out there as another thinking through subcommittees.
Yes, Councilor.
And there's joint motions too, so would they both be?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think
Another thought.
even if that's a good question. But I would think if we're still at a 3-member subcommittee meeting, even a joint motion, you're still gonna stay.
Right, that's why I'm saying that's 3.
Yeah.
That's probably why they stuck with 3 still, so that they don't have a majority at one meeting.
I forget how many they have on their council. I just can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah.
The other thing that I was gonna say, I guess that was kind of idea thing 1, which I don't know without guessing at what passes out of this kind of reform the subcommittee agenda. I think if we're not gonna go for a full overhaul on every other weeks and lots of subcommittee meetings, then this is something that I think we can implement. The other thing is, and I said this in the opening, is that right now the subcommittees aren't defined by council rules. I've looked at not just Cambridge and Worcester, a number of cities seem to spell out all their subcommittees and how many members are on it.
I don't want to interrupt.
Oh, no, so I just think that to me is something that we probably should do. I think part of the reason we have 20-something subcommittees is that it's like no mayor. I don't think any mayor wants to be the mayor that undid somebody else's subcommittee they made, and we just have this problem of addition where like, well, I can't take it away because now in Lowell we don't take them away, so we just keep filling these subcommittees that seemingly don't. and the other, last one. Okay,
Can we
I'm done.
No, don't, we'll come back. I just wanted to, because I think,
No, I was going to echo about the subcommittees not being defined in the rules, really. When I came over from the school committee, they do define some things about subcommittees, and one of the things that was kind of surprising to me was the language around there not being standing committees. Basically, you can't call your own subcommittee meeting because, as a body, we are the ones that decide what gets brought over to a subcommittee. So it isn't something that someone can act on their own. And I have seen subcommittee meetings called on the council that were not actual items that were referred from the full body. And I think that's something that should really be defined, because to me, if it's the whole group's actions that need to decide what's discussed. So that's one thing that I feel is missing.
can I just mention, so the actual subcommittee page on the city website says the city's mayor is responsible for the creation of standing and ad hoc subcommittees. So that's the only reference I saw to how but it's the mayor who is currently defined. So the question, I think we should have a discussion about whether we should define them and whether we should define them along the lines of what Councilor Work was suggesting, or maybe there's some other number, but, yes. But I think you're suggesting, Councilor Scott, that because there aren't standing subcommittees, they all should be referred by the city council. And I guess that's the question, is that the way it should be, do we think, or should there be standing subcommittees? Yes, Councilor. Councilor McDonough.
I think if the intention is to try and make council meetings a little bit more streamlined, I think standing subcommittees make sense. I think it does seem a little bit silly to have to wait multiple weeks. So, okay, here's a topic that should go to the subcommittee, and then you make a motion to ask the subcommittee to, take if it's from a member of the subcommittee, that could be done internally. And then I guess what's covered by the way the Worcester rule is done is that if it's a council member who is not a member of the subcommittee, rather than, violate the open meeting law and tell the subcommittee, hey, can you have a meeting and talk about this? They would take to the floor, make their motion. That motion gets referred to the subcommittee. They're then allowed, staying underneath the quorum, to speak in front of the subcommittee in their capacity as a counselor and flesh out that idea in a subcommittee meeting. I think the core subcommittee should be defined, I personally. That's all.
With the thought, I just want to follow up to understand, so with the thought that the chair of the subcommittee could just call a meeting on whatever is kind of within the purview of that subcommittee whenever they feel like it, or if something is specifically brought.
There's also,
I'd like to get your thoughts too.
well, but there's also nothing in the rules to say you can't. So it's weird, right? And I guess we can ask the solicitor, but by custom, we typically wait to have something referred to a subcommittee, but there is nothing in the rules that would either say you can or you cannot just have a meeting, I guess. That's...
Yes, yeah. It does say in Rule 5A, subcommittee meetings, such meetings shall be held on an as-needed basis, whatever that means. That's the only rule I see, yeah.
I agree, Counselor, it's open to interpretation.
So I don't know, Councilor Scott, if you, from your experience on the school committee and otherwise, what your thoughts are.
Well, I just don't think that a subcommittee is the place just to call a random meeting that wasn't referred by the full body. So I always agreed with that rule. So, I mean, you're not, one person does not make, the whole committee, or direct the whole committee. So if there's been no vote on something, then I feel like it's kind of going a little rogue a little bit when you do that. So that's my opinion, so.
Yeah, I think that's why our meetings go till 10 o'clock at night. I think that it's not, because one person can't have a meeting, you need a quorum. there's no requirement here that, well, actually, there's no way that one person can call a meeting and have a meeting by themselves because they wouldn't have a quorum. Currently, I mean, the proposal in front of us from Councillor Rourke would actually, I think, necessitate standing subcommittees.
I think that's true.
And I think one of the problems that I have with this proposal is that it goes even further than that, and so it brings all of the problems that people can criticize in other kind of legislative bodies where the speaker or whatever presiding officer has too much authority over who talks about what and when, is if we say we want to move the majority of council business to a subcommittee, and the subcommittees are chosen by whoever is the mayor, and there's no rule about how many subcommittees you're on. Yeah, I think, and this isn't, I don't think this is, just looking at the history of Lowell, where we have actually not super powerful subcommittees, you still have cases for decades where, you know, that one got me on the mayor's vote, so I'm going to take them from the chair and put them there, and this one, oh, they like this, so they don't get to do that. And I'm not saying that happens every time, but it is a possibility, and the more power given to the subcommittee, I think the more kind of a perverse incentive there is to play that kind of a assignment game, which I think we can see examples of play out in any number of legislative bodies.
Although I think if we were to change the rules, that, I mean, if you think about if there were 6 subcommittees, 5 members each, so 30 people in a total, 30 positions are needed, and assuming the mayor is not on a subcommittee, then you've got basically each counselor on 3 subcommittees. And if that's the requirement, so it's not like, Councilor McDonough is on all 6 and I'm on none or 1, then that could address that, concern. And whether we leave it to the mayor or we do it some randomly or do some other, I mean, I think that piece of it to address whatever kinds of concerns about, preference could be addressed if we were to go down. I mean, and frankly, even that could be addressed even if we stick with 21 subcommittees. We could figure out a different mechanism to make it whatever is conceived as fair or So I think, Councilor Scott, you're not in favor, I just want to make sure I'm clear, you're not in favor of standing subcommittees that just sort of meet randomly, certainly not with, and I'm assuming with the 21 that we have now, because frankly, that would mean I could have just called this meeting because I just wanted to. Could have had to try to get both of you and everybody else here. I don't know, Councilor McDonough, do you have because I do think there are probably some subcommittees that probably are appropriate to be more standing than others.
Yeah, and our curriculum subcommittee on the school side was a standing subcommittee, and it was voted to become a standing subcommittee.
I see.
Because there was just constantly curriculum subjects that the administration wanted to bring forward through the subcommittee to the full body first. It was kind of a vetting process, but it wasn't the other way around.
Automatically.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
My concern is I don't see this body moving away from, I mean, possibly if we make changes, which is what I would prefer, to the structure as far as the things like, a basketball court, this playground needs to be done, this, that those are just items listed as business for the manager to address. I think that would help and maybe take away from everyone speaking on, on every motion or every subject. I don't really like the idea of more business being completed away from the full body. I prefer less. I know a lot of people say, oh, the subcommittees never meet. I prefer it to be done with the full body. So that's just my personal preference, that I wouldn't support that.
Yeah, I wish that more members of the public were here, including people, other counselors, to speak in their capacity as members of the public, so we would get a broader input, because I can see the value of a different approach, but
It's interesting.
Because, yes. no,
Whether or not,
exactly, why
would
it's
enough items be moved from
Exactly.
the full
yeah.
body to the subcommittee?
Yeah.
Would discussion stop, or would everyone feel like they still need to be heard as a full body on the subject? That's
Yeah,
what
I know,
I'm
I
concerned
don't
that, I mean, I know it was listed as a pilot. That interests me a little bit more than just kind of saying we're going to do this, but I think our meetings are quite long enough many times, especially during the summer, that I'd be worried that if we switch it to every other week, that that's what we're going to have every other week, and then also the long subcommittee as well, so. Yeah. Or no subcommittees in between, but long meetings.
Counselor McDonough, any thoughts?
I just think that we should, at a minimum, I guess I don't see the danger of a rogue subcommittee because they can't actually do anything. It's a discussion. It's a discussion. Like even if we make a motion, we don't have any ability to do anything without taking it back to the full council. And I don't particularly, I don't know. And I think by having, unless there's another way to do it, but I think by defining in the council rules a set of standing subcommittees, we get rid of the bloat of we have 22 something, and we have repeats where we have like election law and rules, and then we have rules and
I think rules is separate.
and then rules is separate. But then we have one that's auditor clerk personnel. There are a couple that have changed a few times, or you have environmental, but now we tend to use environment and flood. And it looks like the flood is a legacy of a flood.
Yeah, I mean, yes, go ahead, Councilor Scott.
I think what you're saying is just the change from each mayor. So those meetings don't have new agenda items, like you're just seeing them as legacy ones
Yes,
that are
I
left
see.
behind on the
Yeah.
list.
Because I think, for instance, on rules, it's now officially rules and election law, but there is on the agenda center a rules
That
by
was the
itself,
prior
right,
name
which is
before,
exactly, yeah.
And just a question, I guess, for the clerk, when we're talking about subcommittees. Like, I know that I had a subcommittee that I didn't call, and that's because in the next meeting or a meeting after that, another item came on that kind of answered what was brought up. So is there a way to close out a subcommittee, or do I just leave it as an
Yeah,
open?
There's no obligation for you to call when it gets referred to you, so it'll just stay there.
It was brought up to me, though, as a reason why, like, subcommittees aren't all meeting, so we should have more subcommittee meetings, or, like, time for subcommittees. But there was actually a reason, so I didn't know if there was an official way to kind of close it out.
No, there is an official way to close it. It's like I said, it's a referral to you or a chair to call the meeting, and like I say, if your issue is resolved, there's no need to call the
No
meeting.
need to call it. Okay,
So,
thank you.
but maybe, I think for closure, because I keep my own running list of what gets put to the subcommittees and which ones get called and whatever, that may be as part of our agenda piece, just as, we get a report from the city manager every quarter on the outstanding motions. Maybe when we look at our agenda order, we have something where we can sort of say, this is not, like that we kind of tie it off where it's sent to the,
But my thought process was the person whose motion was referred would be able to bring that up again if it was something that was not, discussed.
yeah, but I mean, but then it becomes like refiling the motion or whatever, and if we're trying to just sort of like tie off the loose ends, maybe there's some way we fit it into the agenda.
This is-
Something like,
Excuse me.
yeah, please.
This
yeah.
was
I mean,
another one. This was another one where I just have to remember if it was Cambridge or Worcester when I was reading through. They did actually have a rule for this, which was if an item is referred to a subcommittee and the subcommittee fails to act on the item within, like meet on the item within 90 days, then it would go back to the at 90 days, the original maker of the referred item would have the option of submitting it, skipping the subcommittee, and
that's
going
what
to the
you
full
were saying.
council.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that is
If
what
they
you're saying,
feel-
right?
It is, not exactly, but if they felt like their,
Yeah.
the issue that had been referred was not taken up,
Mm-hmm.
then they would have the option to bring it back to the council. But,
Mm-hmm.
for my item, I know that it was taken up, so it's just going to, like, like the clerk said, it's just going to go away. But
So, but that might be a helpful clarification, because, because otherwise I might have assumed there were some I should be waiting for. There is actually one. That's it. It's the ones with the yellow that I'm a member, but not the chair. Those are the chair's initials. So anyway, yeah, but I think that'd be helpful to understand, and that way, and maybe it's not even the maker of the motion who cares, because it might be somebody else who cares about the topic and should recognize, but I think if we know that but I think nobody is going to track, except me or somebody else, that 90 days have passed. So I think it's the mechanism of thinking through, like, maybe having a quarterly update on, subcommittees that haven't met or that things were referred to it. Actually, Mr. Clerk, I know you send out to the chairs of the subcommittees the mailing of, what has been referred to the subcommittee. And I have a stack of those that I've kept. But maybe there's a way to, I don't know where is a good place to do it, whether it's on the agenda or like on a website somewhere, to just sort of see what's been referred, which ones have met. And so then we know, okay, these haven't met, and then it's, not important, or, but I'm not sure who is tracking it, who on the council is tracking.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you were asking for before, for the manager to report out what hasn't been acted on, I can provide that report to him and give him the
Yeah.
data, and whether they want to put it on a website, they want to send it out to the body,
Yeah.
however you guys want to get it.
Yeah, so maybe doing that. I don't think on the website necessarily, but some way that we can kind of know what's been tied off.
Yeah.
Because we're tracking, and the city manager is tracking the motion responses that have or haven't come forward. So in a way, it's a version of that. It's the body
Yeah.
saying, this is important to us to meet and discuss in more detail, but it hasn't happened. And I'm thinking sometimes we think it's, because it just hasn't been scheduled yet because of the challenge of that, but sometimes it's been dropped on purpose, or, and maybe it should be brought back or not. But I think understanding what the status is, especially for me as a new counselor, not really knowing kind of what is typical, could be helpful.
That was my last comment on
please.
how often we've had subcommittee meetings, or how infrequently we've had subcommittee meetings, at least in this council. I do think that when people look at this, there was a fairly high turnover on the city council this year, I think, which was higher than, I don't know, what was the last time, the high school vote? And so you had a number of new councilors, myself being one of them, who didn't necessarily know in the first months, well, how do I schedule a subcommittee meeting? When do we schedule a subcommittee? Do we have to make a motion? Do we have to go to a city council meeting and say, let's have a nonprofit or let's have a whatever subcommittee meeting, or do we just do it? And so I think as that has been worked out by the three new councilors, I think we're getting more, I feel as though we are getting better at and more efficient with the scheduling of the subcommittee meetings. And so I think, as tempting as it may be to look and say, well, look, we've only met this many times in 7 months, I think there was a little bit of a learning curve just due to the turnover.
So, and that's fair. So then the other challenge, so I think at the moment, it's sounding like we're not really pushing forward Council Works' approach. I think the one challenge has been, tonight is, we're having the opportunity to really dig in. Normally, we have 55 minutes before a meeting if we hold the subcommittee meeting on Tuesday. And since everybody's trying to fit their subcommittee meetings in at that time, even though we could do them other days of the week, between scheduling, people's own schedules and scheduling the chamber, it is challenging. So that's the negative, that's the value of Council Works approach, is that there is more, you can devote more time. So I think that's one thing, that's the challenge that we have right now with subcommittees, is we normally don't have the time to do this kind of deep vetting, which is, and I thought about it as like, it is going into depth that we, don't do. So I think at this point, it's sounding like, and maybe I'll quickly summarize some of the key things from where we are, but I sense, and maybe I want to just check with everybody, I think the sense is we're not putting forward to move to the Counselor Works pilot. We are going to make some changes to the rules for clarity primarily, and that seems like, I mean, I'm not sure I need to take a vote, but I can, but I'm seeing lots of nods here. So what we will do is just some quick summaries here. There are some things that that Mr. Ballou from the solicitor's office may look at. So for instance, looking at, for item 2, what other communities do if there's a vacancy in the council and you're also a vacancy in the mayor's or vice chair's position, especially in light of our unique planning form of government here. Going back to item 1, we do need to figure out separately, not a change to the rules, but we have the discussion of the mayor election that I think, again, probably need to bring that forward, so that should continue again separately from any change to the rules right now. Let's see. The start time in item 5, following whether it was Cambridge or Worcester, the start time could be moved by the chair, by the clerk or the chair, to 6 p.m. if they see a long agenda or an executive session, and especially in the summer, or the thought was, but I think we would put in the rules, especially in the summer when it's likely we have longer.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no,
But
please.
there would be no need for language change.
Yes, actually, because of the otherwise designated,
This is more of a personal, like that, just
yeah,
to our
although we
attention
might,
that-
yeah, well, I think the mayor wouldn't even, or I'm not speaking for the mayor, I think if I were mayor, I wouldn't even think about moving it to 6 without having some clarity about that, so I do think we'd probably want some clarity. The difference between, so let's see, we did talk about in 5A about subcommittees. They might be in the mayor's reception room, and they could be otherwise held, for instance, like at the senior center, if a majority of the subcommittee believes so, but really, it should take into account the fact that we really want these televised by LTC, so that is an important gating factor here. There was a typo in 6, about 4 or 5, so it's 5. In item 8, we're going to clarify that the mayor may vote. And in the absence of the mayor and the vice mayor, temporary chair is chosen, I think we said by majority vote. 9, we'll clarify this thing about the vote upon the appeal is by roll call, and that the chair's ruling will stand unless a majority of the votes are to the contrary. The standing vote, I think, Mr. Ballou, you were going to try to figure out why, but it seems odd to me to even call for that, even though Councilor McDonough would love to do that.
I might do it.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going to do it.
Okay. So in item 10, we talked about the I think what we said is the first meeting, the inaugural meeting and the first substantive meeting, Mr. Clerk, if I had it right, in the inaugural meeting and the first substantive meeting of the council, like you would start with the first alphabetical, person. And then it goes beyond that. Motion of reconsideration, here we did say that the requirement would be to alert the clerk by close of business the second day afterwards, so in effect Thursday if the meeting is a normal Tuesday meeting. Item 12, we will clarify that basically only matters that are emergency communications or emergency appropriations would the city manager have till 2 p.m. to put on the desk, otherwise everything should otherwise be on the agenda. Let's see. So we will clarify questions of municipal importance to reflect this idea that they are questions and not motions, and I think maybe we'll need some, we'll figure out how to do that, and actually at the end I'll ask you, Mr. Baloo, how we should continue. We will get rid of old business but keep unfinished business. We will delete the communications or reports from city officers, and we'll try to fit in some of the things that we do have on the agenda typically, like the, approval of the minutes and, at times executive session and announcements and moments of silence. We will clarify that the presiding officer should call the vice mayor if the presiding officer wants to sit and speak. Otherwise, if the vice mayor is not there, call any city councilor. I think we decided to add in that the city manager can pre-bundle votes if they're non-controversial, but a councilor could ask to have that taken out of the, or to something taken out of the bundle. Section 20, objection to the withdrawal of a question. Oh, I think we may just clarify, this was the language in the bullets where we were going back and forth to try to understand it. So I think we should just try to clarify that, but it wasn't controversial, it was just confusing. And we did discuss for item 22, clarifying that what vote is required to take something from the table, so, and to reflect what Robert's rules say, so there's no confusion by anybody. Let's see. We talked for item 26 about allowing residents and employees of the city to speak, as well as someone officially representing a business that or nonprofit that operates in the city, but one of them. We would also, people have to register to speak by 4 p.m., not 4:30, so we'll clarify that. And we'll clarify that they can register by, basically what it says in the agenda. They can contact the clerk ahead of time by sending an email or phone, and they should specify their name, address, and a phone number so they can be contacted, as well as the agenda item that they will speak on. Okay. We will clarify in 26A, at least for my benefit, what the 5 times 3 minutes means, that they are speaking on 5 departments, because I truly got confused by that. And we are going to copy the idea that business or businesses and nonprofits could speak. That was from 26. Let's see, 32 is suspension of the rules. Yeah, so if two people object to a voice vote, you can call a roll call, but it doesn't apply to rule number 5. So you're going to just deal with rule number 5 about extending past 10 PM sorry. Go ahead.
I think we needed, if I remember correctly, we
Yeah,
needed clarification on the two-member objection, and we wanted to know whether the two-member objection was a flat refusal to suspend the rules, or whether it was triggering the appropriate vote, and then we need to clarify what the number is in Roberts for the suspension, I think.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Okay.
Yes, that was my understanding.
Can you explain that one more time?
Yeah,
Just
no,
I
so
I thought
I will look into Robert's rules to determine this objection by two counselors in relation to the typical 2/3 vote requirement for a suspension of the rules. Again, I say typical because it's not
Yep.
every rule, but most are. So I will try to reconcile those two
Okay,
things.
yep, got it. So between majority versus 2/3, yeah, okay, thank you. But for Rule 5, to extend past 10 PM, that will not be done through a suspension of rules. It will be done,
It should never have been.
well, I understand, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
for clarity, Rule 5 applies to that past 10 PM. The title in 34 and 35, we will change, and we will also clarify in 34 that an appropriation order or transfer requires either a department head or their designee or the CFO to make the explanation. And that was it. Cool. Thank you, everybody. I know it's a slog, but I actually like these slogs. This is the value of a longer than 50-minute subcommittee meeting. I thank you, Mr. Baloo. I thank you, Mr. Geary. I thank you to the counselors who are here and the one member of the public who was here temporarily. Did you have anything else before we?
Just if I could, before we adjourn,
Yes.
so that I don't have to file a separate motion to ask us to meet again, would be one other item to consider would be at a future meeting, maybe as part of the city council rules, written rules for public comment to be posted on the podium. I've seen a number of other communities that do this. Just kind of, if you are speaking, not just the 3 minutes, but you don't call out a counselor by name, you don't jump up and down, you don't have just the kind of things that, depending on whoever is presiding a meeting, they may or may not actually enforce. But right now, there's nothing in writing, and the teacher in me says we should just be clear and explicit about what the rules for public comment are.
Yeah, okay, yep.
So is
Yeah.
the plan just to take this as a report of progress, and we're going to continue to it? You're going to come back with?
Yeah, I think if, and I'd be happy to work with you, because I had, like I said, some typos I would offer, so I'd be happy. We should, bring this back ultimately to the council at our next meeting. We either will have the minutes to share, or we can give a quick summary that there are some things going to be, coming forward to, I think these are primarily clarifications. We're not making any humongous changes, and that at the moment we are not moving forward. We are not proposing as a subcommittee to move forward with with Councilor Works.
So is the request to bring back a red line copy that we can present to the entire council? Is the?
Yes, I think.
Yeah,
so if you're-
if that would be the request of the subcommittee, I can prepare a red line version of the council rules and share it with the subcommittee.
Cool, thank you. Cool. Perfect. Anything else? Should we adjourn? Anybody want to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.